So good morning again, everybody. Happy Valentine's Day. It's great to see you. I am a fan of ancient Greek philosophy, in particular the works of Plato, because I love one of the things that Plato does, especially through his central character of Socrates, is that they seek to ask the question of what is these ideals that we hold? What are they? What is wisdom? What is justice? What is love? And when we ponder the meaning of these things, sometimes we find that that which we claim is more important to us than anything in this world, sometimes we have no clue what it really is. I might, for example, really value wisdom, so much so that I walk around thinking that I know everything, gathering as much knowledge as I can, when really wisdom has a lot to do with knowing that you don't know, doesn't it? I've certainly found this to be true when it comes to love. As we shared about, if you were here last week, that at certain times I thought of love as a mood, as a state of affairs, as an ideal, or as a reflection of myself, when in truth I've learned over time that love sometimes is about answering a call that is beyond our own reflection, to serve something greater than ourselves, that the call to love often comes at the most challenging and difficult times in our lives, not just when we're in a good mood. Plato talked in particular about two kinds of love. The first he called eros, and eros is often associated with romantic or erotic love, but to me it really means new love, fresh love, a present moment kind of love, a love that values the mystery of right now. So I think that you can have eros not just with your partner or someone in a romantic way, but you can have it with anyone that you love, a child or a parent or a good friend. You can invite something new. And eros is about passion. It's about excitement. It's about not knowing and giving in to that energy that's there. The second type of love that Plato talked about is called philia. And this was known as kind of like a familiar love. Generally, it's related to friends and family and people we've known a long time, but I think it has a romantic function too. It's that aspect of familiarity and of shared experience. And I would also call it's probably snuggly, cuddly, wuddly love too. It's probably that philia type of love. So it's something you can have with friends and family, but it's something we have with partners as well. And so I want to ask the question today, who here has a healthy amount of eros going on in their life right now? We only have one hand raised. Okay. I know Anne-Marie's keeping busy with that, especially with the 50 Shades of Grey book. At the last White Elephant Exchange, there was a pair of handcuffs with her initials on them. Just kidding. But again, eros doesn't have to be always an erotic love. It can be a love of the brand new that we experience in ourselves or those around us. How many have a healthy amount of philia in their lives, of that familiar love? To me, a good love life has to have a balance of both eros and philia. Centuries later, a very intelligent but complicated theologian named Augustine talked about another kind of love that he called agape. And agape means a love of God. It means charity. It means glorification. It means loving the sacred in the divine, but I would say in one another as well. Because I don't think agape is always about God, but it's not as we see it, as many people see it as a God way out there in the clouds, but it's the sacred in each and every one of us when we're able to honor and celebrate the divine in those around us. So how many of you have a healthy amount of agape in your life, valuing the sacred? So that to me too is how we have a really balanced life in love, no matter what your relationship status may be. Are you inviting the new of eros? Are you celebrating the familiar with philia? And are you honoring the sacred, the agape, in your life? Our book of the month for fun this month is the Princess Bride. And so how many of you have read The Princess Bride or seen the movie The Princess Bride? And it's filled with these great lines. There's Miracle Max, and his wife says to him, "I'm not a witch, I'm your wife." That's always a great line. There's, "Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father, prepare to die." Right? There's "Inconceivable." Everyone remember that? From the little evil guy, Zini. And then there's the wedding that happens, and there's the line, "Marriage, the blessed union," I think it says, something like that. So if you haven't seen the movie, I'm sorry. And then perhaps the most famous line is "As you wish." As you wish. And The Princess Bride is a love story about Princess Buttercup and Wesley. And Buttercup lives with her family on a farm, and Wesley is the farm boy, and she's always bossing around, telling him what to do, and every time she gives him an order, he answers, "As you wish." Eventually, as she begins to grow up, she realizes that all this bullying and bossing around isn't really anger, it's love. She's in love with Wesley, and Wesley has always been in love with her. And so eventually they confess their love to each other, but they're not quite trusting of each other. And so they have a conversation that goes like this. "Well," Princess Buttercup says, "you haven't once said you love me. That's all you need? Easy. I love you, okay? Want it louder? I love you. Spell it out, should I? ILOVEYOU. Want it backward? You love I." "You are teasing now, aren't you?" "A little, maybe," Wesley replied. "I've been saying it so long to you, you just wouldn't listen. Every time you said, 'Farm boy, do this,' you thought I was answering, 'As you wish.' But that's only because you were hearing wrong. I love you was what it was, but you never heard, and you never heard." It's always interesting to ask ourselves what our words are really saying beyond the content of them. That when you speak your words in your life, are you affirming of love? Are you affirming connection? Or are you affirming a separateness or a disconnection? I know even at times in my life I've said, "I love you," to affirm connection, but I've also said it to get off the phone. Or to complete a conversation as well. And I think we can all take a look at our lives and look at if we're really saying yes to love and connection and harmony, not just with our partners, but in all of our life. Or are we seeking to affirm a sort of separateness or an anger or some discontent in our lives? Many of us have had that experience in our relationships, in past or present, where you're at a dinner or at a restaurant somewhere, and all of a sudden there's just nothing to say, nothing to be said. And I've been in that situation before and asked myself, have we talked about everything finally? Is there nothing more to be discussed? We talked about every bit of weather, every sports team, every news event, every story we know about ourselves, and you wonder, is this the end? Is this it? But it reminds us, or it reminds me of something that famously Miss Nin said. She said, "Love never dies a natural death. It dies because we don't know how to replenish its source. It dies of blindness and errors and betrayals. It dies of illness and wounds. It dies of weariness, of witherings, of tarnishings." Learning to experience love to a greater degree in our lives, whether that's someone we're in relationship with now or someone we've yet to be in relationship with, begins with cultivating a willingness to love in our own consciousness. We must say yes to love before we can receive it from anyone or anything else. We have to cultivate it. There's an old analogy about relationships that in the dating world, everyone who enters is like a traffic light. You either have a green light, which means you're ready to say yes to the kind of relationship you want, or there are those who have red lights and they're not ready to say yes to love or a greater way of relationship in their life. And then there's all the yellow lights, who are the cautionary ones. They're not quite sure if they're ready to say yes to love or relationship in their lives. And the nugget of wisdom for people in the dating world is to recognize that even if you're incredibly compatible, if your light is green and you're ready, but if you're dating someone who has a red light, conflicts are going to emerge. Even if you're a green light and they have a yellow light, problems will begin to persist because you're at different levels of readiness in relationship. The nugget of wisdom for all of us in all of our relationships is, since you can't see what other people's lights are, it's good to really look within to see if you have a green light, a yellow light, or a red light. Am I really saying yes to love in my life? Am I really saying yes to deeper and grander love in my relationship? Be that with my partner, my kids, my parents, my coworkers, whatever it may be. Am I saying yes to love? And I think one of the hardest things for so many of us to admit to ourselves is how often we're saying no to love. As the old saying goes, don't listen to what he says, listen to what he does. We have to also look at our own way of acting. I know in my life sometimes I've been saying yes to resentment more than love, saying yes to more the importance of being right about something than love, saying more yes to being angry or being in judgment than saying yes to love, even though always love is that thing more than any experience that I may want to have that I'm still saying no to, even though it's right there. If I were to describe love, I would never seek to define it. If I were to describe love, for me, it's spirit in action. Where I say yes to love, I'm saying yes to a connection with whatever may be around me. But if I'm willing to allow it to begin within myself, it begins to unfold for me in wonderful and inspiring ways. Love is often the easiest and most wonderful feeling in the world, but it never tends to walk an easy path. This is the lesson of the Princess Bride and Wesley and Buttercup's relationship, because after those words are spoken that I shared with you, they're soon separated. And in order to come back to love, they have to overcome trial after trial. Princess Buttercup gets kidnapped by a prince who wants to marry her. She gets kidnapped from that prince by an evil man named Vizzini and his two thieves. And Wesley has to overcome, he has to defeat a fencing master and Andre the Giant and win a battle of wits before they come back together. Even at one point in the story, Wesley even dies. But he comes back to life. Remember, love is stronger than death, to realize true love again. But after they're reunited, Wesley and Princess Buttercup, what do they have to do? They have to travel over cliffs of insanity and move through swamps of fire. Is that not the adventure of true love? Finding love together, then moving over cliffs of insanity and through swamps of fire filled with rodents of unusual size. I don't mean to say that the path of love can't be sweet and supportive, for it certainly is. But that's sometimes why we say no to love, because we fear the adventure. We fear the transformation, because to truly love is to be transformed. And sometimes we really want to cling to being exactly the same. I love something that the poet Rilke said. If I can find it here. Kind of reminds me of the last service with the book, doesn't it? He said, "Believe in a love that is being stored up for you like an inheritance, and have faith that in this love there is a strength and a blessing so large that you can travel as far as you wish without having to step outside it." One more time, believe in a love that is being stored up for you like an inheritance, and have faith that in this love there is a strength and a blessing so large that you can travel as far as you wish without having to step outside of it. We again affirm here the idea that none of us will ever really receive love outside of ourselves. It will never really come to us. It is always our ability to create a net and a receptivity to it within ourselves. We must first say yes to love, and if not, we'll be saying no to it for the rest of our lives, whether that be overall or in those moment-by-moment opportunities. I want to take a little bit of the wisdom of Plato and of Augustine and invite us to apply it to our relationships, to this idea of living a life balanced in love and saying yes to love at all levels. So I want to talk a little bit about living in love in a state of eros, in a state of philia, and in a state of agape. And what that means, it's a little saying, this is what I want us to do. I want us to invite the new. I want us to honor the familiar. And I want us to celebrate the sacred. So you want to repeat those things after me? Invite the new. Celebrate the familiar. And honor the sacred. I might flip around those beginning words, so I'm still memorizing myself. So that's what we want to do. How's that going to work in my relationship? Well, I'm going to sit down with my partner and I'm going to ask her something I've never asked her before. Something present, something new. And I'm going to behold her by holding her not to the past and who I think she is, but in the mysterious expression of the goddess that she is. I'm going to listen and just receive with brand new, fresh ears. And you know what that's going to do? It's going to create eros. It's going to invite the new. In terms of philia, I'm going to remember something about our relationship. You remember AOL Instant Messenger? And you had a funny nickname, and I had a series of capital letters mixed with numbers. And we would talk there. And do you remember when the dial-up connection would go back, and it wouldn't even matter if you were the Buddha, when it wouldn't connect, you'd want to get your computer up and throw it out the window because it was so frustrating to get those things to work. So we're going to remember that shared experience, and it's going to create philia. We're going to have that familiar love. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take her, and maybe we'll go on a walk on the pier, and we just won't say a word. And we'll look out at the vastness of the ocean and the beauty of nature before us, and we'll realize, holding hands in that moment, that deep, primordial essence out there is the same thing that binds us together. And we will celebrate the sacred. What can you do in your relationship? You can apply it to your romantic one, but again, you can apply it to whatever that central relationship you have in your life right now is. It could be with a parent, could be with a child, could be with a buddy, could be with yourself. I'm going to invite us today to say some vows of love to ourselves. And if you're willing, just close your eyes and repeat each vow after I share it. You can do it aloud or in silence to yourself. I vow to always see the new in you and behold it.
I vow to always see the new in you and behold it.
I vow to always remember our connection and honor it.
I vow to always remember our connection and honor it.
I vow to always remember the sacred in you and celebrate it.
I vow to always remember the sacred in you and celebrate it.
I vow to say yes to love.
I vow to say yes to love.
Yes to love.
Yes to love.
And at this point, too, I'm going to invite you to call forth a person to your mind. A central relationship you have in your life, and if you're sitting next to a partner and they're willing to play along, you can take a look at each other and do this with your eyes open. But again, I'm going to invite you to repeat after me. I vow to always see the new in you and behold it.
I vow to always see the new in you and behold it.
I vow to always remember our connection and honor it.
I vow to always remember our connection and honor it.
I vow to always remember the sacred in you and celebrate it.
I vow to always remember the sacred in you and celebrate it.
I vow to say yes to love.
I vow to say yes to love.
Yes to love.
Yes to love.
And so it is.
And so it is.
Thank you for your time, everyone, this morning. Happy Valentine's Day.